Posted by user, Slickhead Singer. Revenge of the construction workers. I am a teacher, and when I was younger, I would take summer jobs to supplement my income. One summer, I worked for a bricklayer named Jerry, and heard an amazing story. I worked for Jerry in the mid-90s, so the story either happened in the early 90s or the 80s. Here goes. The setting for the story was a community of small rural towns which had only one brick contractor. Jerry began his career as a bricklayer working for this contractor, a real jerk. Jerk and Jerk's son, adult working the business with his father, would harass, belittle, and humiliate all their employees on a regular basis. No work was ever good enough and employees were told they weren't worth what they were paid. Not only did Jerk mistreat his employees, but he was equally rude to other subcontractors, and to the general contractors who hired him. Since he was the only bricklayer in the community, there was nothing anyone could do about it. Needless to say, the turnover rate for the brick business was very high. The only person that stuck with Jerk and company was Jerry. Jerry told me that his father had instilled self-confidence in him, that Jerry could do anything he set his mind to do, and that he should not evaluate himself according to what others said, but rather by the facts. Although Jerry was belittled by Jerk and Son as were all other employees, Jerry was becoming a very good bricklayer. Jerry knew he was good, Jerk knew Jerry was good, but Jerk didn't know that Jerry knew he was good. Not only was Jerry a good bricklayer, he was very respectful to the boss who disrespected him. Jerk thought that Jerry was a naive pushover, who was buying his head games. That would prove to be a huge mistake on his part. One day, Jerry was doing an exceptionally good job of laying brick. Not only was his craftsmanship amazing, but he was also laying brick at a high rate of speed, so that he was making his boss lots of money. Of course, Jerk and Son were belittling his work as though he was doing the very opposite. This scenario was being observed by the general contractor of the project. After work that day, the general contractor asked Jerry to stay behind so he could talk to him. As did every other construction worker in the community, general contractor hated working with Jerk. General contractor told Jerry that he had heard Jerk and Son belittling him, and told him that he disagreed with everything Jerk was saying. He asked Jerry if he had ever considered going into business for himself. Jerry said that he would like to do that someday. General contractor then said that he would loan Jerry the money to buy a mixer, the most expensive piece of equipment needed to start a brick business, if Jerry would indeed start said business. The only hitch was that Jerry would need to pay for the mixer whenever he could, and that he would subcontract under general contractor. Jerry agreed to those terms and prepared to begin his new venture. Jerry respectfully told Jerk and Son his plans and gave his notice. The two mocked Jerry ruthlessly, and laughed him to scorn. Jerk told Jerry, "You'll be back in 2 months, begging to return to your job, you'll never make it as a subcontractor." 2 months later, rather than collapsing as Jerk predicted, Jerry was still in business, and going strong. 1 year later, Jerry's business was booming, and a drunk Jerk showed up at Jerry's house and begged him to come back to work with Jerk and Son. "Jerry, you're the best employee I ever had." Jerry replied, "Why didn't you ever tell me that when I was working for you?" Jerk couldn't answer the question, and Jerry obviously didn't accept the offer for employment. 2 years after beginning his entrepreneurial adventure, Jerry heard that Jerk and Son went out of business. Jerry said that he never intended to harm Jerk and Son when he accepted general contractor's offer. He said that looking back on things he realized that he had become Jerk's greatest nightmare. "I can't say that general contractor intended no harm. I thought the most amazing thing about the story was how that Jerry maintained his self-esteem despite all the ridicule. I also gained respect for Jerry's father who instilled an unshakable self-confidence in Jerry." Edit: I contacted Jerry today, after 20 years, to let him know how highly you thought of him. He reminded me that his father was wheelchair-bound and accomplished so much despite his handicap. It was his father's overcoming huge obstacles that made Jerk's words seem to be such a minor obstacle to overcome. Posted by user, Interesting Spite 8260. All she had to do was nothing. TL, Dr. I quit a job I otherwise adore to escape a toxic manager. Coworkers reorganized the chain of command to get me to stay. The manager ended up demoted. Context names and some details changed for privacy, I'm on mobile, etc. Players, me equals me, NB31, but I'm not out of work, manager equals Lady Catherine, F60s, managing partner equals Bennett, M50s, my partner equals Gardner, M47, partner I'm babysitting equals Bingley, M44, my friend / coworker equals Charlotte, F30s. I am a professional attorney wrangler for a big legal firm. If you've watched Suits, I'm Donna if she was wound up tighter than a child's music box. As a legal admin, I have to keep a tremendous amount of information straight. Every county in every US state has their own court system, their own rules, and their own idiosyncrasies. I have 5 attorneys on my team. Despite the TV shows, it's pretty unusual for a lawyer to have a special secretary all their own, unless they are very important, so 5 is a solid number. Because of the global issue that took over the world last year, a secretary that left in January 2020 has not been replaced yet, and I've been babysitting one of the partners, Bingley, in the meantime. It's been a fun learning opportunity, as Bingley works for an entirely different region and type of law than the rest of my team. Also, he has a case where a truck exploded, was empty, which is awesome. Story. My manager, Lady Catherine, is the worst. You know the type, she plays favorites, her best loved word is no, she must be involved in every conversation, because she is just that important and necessary. We don't get along, because I am a stubborn know-it-all, who's been proven right a few too many times. Highlights include, forbidding me from using the same resources other admins had access to, on her orders, including backup admins, when my workload was too big, and then denying my overtime requests. I literally had no way to do my job some days. It's worth noting that the reason Bingley's secretary left, was specifically because of Lady Catherine. In fact, 4 additional admins quit over the year, explicitly because of her. Anyway, at this point, I'd been working with Bingley for almost a year. It was November 2020, and we'd settled into a pretty good routine. I'd gotten used to filing pleadings in a different state, and no longer needed to double check all my work for nuance. Because law still operates in the Stone Age, a few US states still require hard copy filing. Anything we want the judge to read has to be sent by actual mail, on actual paper, to arrive in the judge's actual hands. It's a pain, most states let you file electronically, but whatever. Bingley mostly only has cases in one of the hard copy states. Lady Catherine, in her excessive wisdom, butted in uninvited, and instructed me to include a cover letter when mailing a new filing. This confused me, as I had been filing for almost a year and no one including the admin, who originally trained me, had mentioned a cover letter. I told her this, and she basically told me to suck it up. I called the court admin to make sure I wasn't crazy, and that I hadn't ruined a year's worth of filings, and the court admin laughed and said to please not include a cover letter ever. So I didn't. Imagine my surprise when Lady Catherine called me, writing me up for insubordination. Even knowing the court rules, and the judge and the court admin explicitly said to not send a damn letter, she was right because, she is always right and I am, and I quote, a disrespectful little shit and she was tired of me. A warning went into my employee file, pending disciplinary measures. The next day, she emailed my team telling them to reduce my score on my yearly review, as she knew I had been rated too highly for what my abilities really are. It felt to me like she was preparing to fire me, by creating a history of poor performance. Well, if you're so tired of me, Madam Manager, I can leave. Within a week of looking, I found a new position. Now, here's the issue, I fucking love my team. This is the best work team I've ever been on. We take each other seriously and we genuinely love each other. A lot of times admins get pushed around because we don't have fancy degrees, but not here. Calling in to quit, I cried. I cried a lot. I cried to the point that one of the partners, Bennett, asked if I wanted a counter offer. I said no, because that wouldn't solve anything. He asked what I meant. I told him. I told him about the write-up. I told him how she was trying to falsify my employee review after it had been submitted. I told him the reason 5 admins had left. I told him about how I wasn't allowed to ask for help. At this point, I had given myself hiccups from weeping, and one of the partners on my team, Gardner, was calling him asking if he and his workload were the reasons I was leaving, so Bennett let me go do other things, like day drink and create a shrine out of legal forms. I thought it was the end of it, until a friend in another office, Charlotte, called me asking WTF I was doing. She doesn't have time to train someone into being the new me, and I was the only admin she trusts in my office, so why was I leaving her all alone? I told her. And she told Gardner. And together they plotted. First, Charlotte is the manager in her office, so she is on equal footing with Lady Catherine. They also report to the same person. Charlotte called the district manager, and told him that Lady Catherine was driving admins away and that the most recent quitter, me, was the only person who knows how to do a lot of the work on my teams, and my loss was a serious blow. Apparently, this is true, which is both heartwarming and terrifying. Meanwhile, Gardner called up a fellow partner and told her that his world would collapse in on itself if I left. He would go to the nearest bridge and jump off it, which would be pretty impressive in a landlocked state. They had to do something. I got a call the next day from Bennett, saying they had a counteroffer they were hoping I'd take. Basically, instead of Lady Catherine, I would report directly to Gardner. Lady Catherine would be forbidden from interfering with me, without first asking Gardner for his permission. This solved the issue, and I got to stay with my team, so I happily accepted. I thought the debacle was over. The debacle was not over. Unbeknownst to me, after looking at the evidence, exit interviews, emails, memos, Bennett put Lady Catherine on a performance improvement plan and she did not get an end-of-year bonus or raise. Turns out I had been correct. Lady Catherine's behavior and treatment had been the explicit cause that 6 secretaries quit in less than a year. I got a call last week from Charlotte. I figured she wanted to gossip about coworkers, or rant about how a shared client is a big ol' headache, but it was actually to give me a heads up. Lady Catherine had been stripped of her management duties. I no longer had any contact with her, which was great, but it also meant I didn't see that her behavior had actually doubled down on the admins unfortunate enough to still be under her thumb. She had missed every single one of the benchmarks on her performance improvement plan. Charlotte had called me to ask my opinion on who should be the new manager, as I know everyone and she was helping cover some things as an outside manager. Now, I know some of you are thinking, yes, become the manager and fire Lady Catherine. But I am not a sadist. I want to stay on my team, and do what I do best, which is being a cheerfully annoying respectful little shit. I told her one of the more senior admins would probably need some guidance, but would be amazing at it. No one has to deal with Lady Catherine anymore. She is now a mere paralegal, and not anyone's manager at all. If she had just left me alone and not interfered where she wasn't needed, none of this would have happened. All she had to do was nothing. Edit/FAQ. Holy moly y'all, I'm so happy people think I'm funny. I'm going to print out your comments and staple them to my mom's forehead like, see? The internet laughs at my jokes. Thank you so much for the gold and silver. I'm super excited and honored, but don't waste your actual money on my silly story. Why wasn't Lady Catherine fired? Answer: I have no idea. My best guess is she's really great at another part of her job or has a valuable qualification. That or she's extorting someone. I will absolutely update if I find out for certain. There are bridges in landlocked states. Answer: it's just a silly throwaway joke, but I'm from the San Francisco area originally. When I say bridge, I think Golden Gate, which does go over the ocean. I'm new to the middle part of the US and I'm still learning your weird claustrophobic topography. Where are Bennett's managerial skills here? Answer: look, I picked Bennett as his name for a reason. He's a great dude, super smart and funny, but he tends to ignore problems instead of solving them. Wait, how many secretaries quit? Do you know how numbers work? Answer: I absolutely do not, thank you for asking. My math does check out here though, 4 nameless secretaries plus, Bingley's former secretary plus, me, I stayed but I also quit. I'm a conundrum, equals 6. 6 pissed off admins. Ah ha ha. Bennett, if you're reading this, this is why I turned down the accounting duties, so. Who actually got revenge here? Answer: Charlotte IMO. I wasn't sure what Reddit to post this to, but ProRevenge is my favorite so I tried it out. I briefly chatted with a mod who agreed, so here it is. If you liked these stories, hit that like button, and leave a comment below. You can upvote these stories by pressing the links in the description. If you want to hear more stories from me, hit the subscribe button, and press the bell icon to be alerted when a new video is posted.